Yo, comrades, what's up? Hope you're all doing well. I am here to talk about Bizarre Adventures. No, I am actually. Number 27 includes 3 stories about the X-Men, and I was really trying to figure out how to fit this in because it came out around this time period that we're in at this juncture and deals with storylines that occur within like the time frame that we're at with the X-Men, but it doesn't really fit in. And it's pretty long, so I'm just going to do this issue by itself because otherwise it's just complete randomness, and this issue is pretty random. Came out in July 1981. Anyway, so the 3 X-Men we're going to kind of focus on are Phoenix, who's deceased, Iceman, and Kurt Wagner. So the Phoenix story begins with Sarah Gray, Jean's older sister, who's visiting her grave, and she comments about how her body's not there, and then she has like a flashback to when her and Jean were like visiting some, where was it? Shelter Island, New York, and how they were going to get on a boat and go sailing and have a good old time. Jean is like revealing to Sarah at this time that she has telekinetic powers and that, you know, kind of everything that's been going on with the X-Men and whatnot. And Sarah's like, oh, you know, it's cool, but I'm kind of worried about my kids. Then they mess around a little bit and have some like fun banter back and forth. And then this like crazy fog shows up. And we also find out that there's like this, what do you call it, submarine tracking them. Anyway, Sarah ends up passing out, and then Jean does as well and falls into the water. She then has a secondary flashback within this flashback, which doesn't make any sense because the story. So the story is like this whole story is a flashback for Sarah, but then within the flashback for Sarah, Jean Grey has a flashback. The fuck. And it's the story of how Jean first got her powers. She was playing with her friend Annie or something, and then Annie got hit by a car. And Jean goes up, and then she can like read her mind, and she experiences everything that Annie experienced. And then she goes into like a deep depression until Charles comes up and saves her. She meets Cyclops, becomes Phoenix, and yada yada yada. Then she wakes up and she's in like Atlantis, essentially, like an Atlantean city underwater. And she's like, Namor, I remember that guy. We fought him once. She hears her sister scream. She runs over. They're both dressed like concubines, like yeah, from like an old pulp novel. So she knocks her sister out so she'll calm down and then brings her back and explains everything. They then get accosted by some guards who take them to Attuma. Attuma hates Namor and wants to take over, and he's building his harem so he can breed better women, I guess. And then Phoenix can't use her powers, quote unquote can't use her powers because of the psionic dampeners. So this guy like sought out Jean specifically. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't realize how strong Phoenix is, and he also calls her a Marvel girl, so he also doesn't realize that Jean is no longer Jean, but Phoenix. She blows up all the psionic dampeners, blasts guys, moves around, and it takes her Sarah and runs, and eventually she has to face Attuma himself. Attuma's super strong, so even her like Phoenix powers, she's having like a little bit of a struggle trying to fight this guy, but not that much. It's like a page of like kind of back and forth. He's trying to kill her with a sword, and she blasts him into something, and it looks like he's dead. But then she doesn't seem too brokenhearted about it. And then when the other guards like show up to save Attuma, she purposely does things to not kill them. So I don't know. The whole place kind of caves in, and Sarah and her like swim away. Oh, so they're underwater this whole time because apparently Attuma developed some sort of biological virus or something that changes someone from being able to breathe air to breathing water. So when they get to the surface, after swimming through like a delightful school of dolphins, Sarah comes to the surface and passes out because she can't breathe, because she can only breathe underwater. Now, Jean is a Phoenix. She's already cured that problem for herself. So then she sits with Sarah for a little bit, and Sarah's like, this actually wouldn't be so bad if I wasn't like married to 2 kids, which is kind of like her whole concern. This issue is her kids becoming mutants as well, and what that would mean, and yada yada yada. Anyway, so Jean uses Phoenix magic to transform her sister's DNA so she can breathe air again, but that knocks Jean out, and so the dolphins lift Jean up so Sarah can drag her out to shore and resuscitate her. And then they talk about how the X-Men are coming to get them and everything's going to be a-okay. Back in the present, Sarah's leaving the graveyard, and she's like, you know what, if my kids are mutants, that's fine, as long as they're as amazing as you are, little sis. And then we get like a ghost image of the Phoenix looking over Sarah. She walks away sad. The next story is Iceman. So Iceman is going to school in Dartmouth College apparently, and he's wandering around the campus, and apparently they've made superhero statues of a bunch of superheroes. You see like Thor, and he's admiring the work on Angel. You see Captain America, Hulk, just a bunch of who else was this? Is that Miss Marvel maybe? Anyway, so he makes an Iceman statue, and then some local goons or some frat boys come up, and then they get into like a big old snowball fight just because. They hear some craziness going on, and they go and see that it's some goons trying to steal a computer, and some old man is like, oh, they're stealing this computer, blah blah blah. And so the goons blast some of the frat boys who are trying to help, and then Iceman turns into Iceman, or I should say Bobby Drake turns to Iceman and beats them all up and saves the computer, and everything's going great. And then Iceman, everyone's like, Iceman's the best. And then they all have like a snowball fight, and they make like an ice slide for everybody, and they just have like a grand old time fucking around and doing Iceman stuff. And then they're like celebrating in like some chow hall or whatever, and a detective shows up, and he's like, oh yeah, the computer was donated to the school by Hank Pym, who is Yellow Jacket currently. And so the guys wanted to steal it because it's like some new superpowered experimental computer. Anyway, so then Iceman's like thinking about it. He's like, And then they start talking about the guy who called for help, because they're like, who called for help? And it was like, oh, this old guy. It's like, oh, he's a professor. And no, he's just some like old guy who like hangs out around the neighborhood or whatever. We then go to that old man and his crew, because they're the ones trying to steal it. So they had a whole scheme where they were going to pretend to steal something, and they like were carrying a crate out the door, and they got caught, and they put the crate back in the computer room, but the crate actually had a person in it, and that person opened the door and let them come in so they could steal the computer. And then the old man's like, ha ha ha, no one will discover our plans. And then they're all walking by all these like statues of people, and one of them's Iceman, and he pops up and he starts freezing dudes and fighting dudes, and he's messing them up real good. And then the old man is like, oh, the blasters they use that you deflected, mine is much stronger. And he goes, bam! And it hits Iceman real hard, so he starts to turn back into Bobby Drake. And then he uses his like Omega level powers to reform himself and chase after the guy, and he gets him. there's more like fun adventures, like ice slides, and like what's that thing called, the with the pole vaulting and skiing after this guy. And then the old man bumps into some drunk frat boys, and he's like, what, I'm gonna blow everyone up. And then Iceman grabs his magic wand gun thing as it's about to explode and throws it in the air covered in ice, and it goes ba-boom, and the drunks are like, yay, hooray. And they arrest this guy, and he's just some like goon who was trying to steal stuff. And the next one's like, all right, time to go meet my friend Francis. I don't know who that is. Anyway, the last story is Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler's just chilling at the house watching TV with Colossus, Cyclops for some reason, Storm, and Wolverine. I mean, they did rescue Cyclops recently, so maybe that is, what's it called, canon-y? Anyway, they're watching Zorro. Nightcrawler explains how he loves Zorro, he loves the swashbuckling thing, he's super happy, and then Cerebro goes off. So they go and they find a half mutant, and they're like, the fuck? When they show up, it's the Vanisher! Oh, the Vanisher's back! There he is. He looks real freaked out. He's like half there, half not. And so Nightcrawler touches him, and there's like a giant bamf that everyone sees it from like miles around, and they get thrown to like different dimensions. They get like normal dimension, they're like animal dimension, they're like crazy bug dimension, they're women dimension, and then eventually they both pop out into this world that has no men. And so first Nightcrawler gets accosted by these women who are like, oh, you're really cute, you can be our god, and, impregnate all of us, which is what they want. Doesn't say that directly. And then meanwhile, Vanisher's the same thing, only Vanisher is trying to use like his suit of magic, but nothing really works. He like pulls out a sword, he does some magic tricks, he's trying to vanish. Both of them try to vanish, and they cannot vanish, they cannot teleport or anything. Nightcrawler's in like asking ladies about stuff, he's like eating, drinking, marrying, being married, probably fucked a bunch of them first, and then is like, hey, so how do I get out of here? And they're like, oh, there's an oracle, let's go talk to him. And these women are like very like, cool, whatever, don't worry about it. And so he wanders over to this oracle, and he goes inside, and it's just like some crazy alien computer with like an old woman who's like, oh, hello, sweetie. Yes, if you'd like to leave, there's like a volcano access port that has connections to like every universe, and like anybody who can like transport and enter like what do they call it? Like the shadow realm, the warp realm. Hold on, let me see what my notes say here. Anybody who can dump into the home free as long as means something extra. I don't know. Anyway, he gets warned to not take anything extra, which I don't know. I thought that was going to be a bigger deal, but it never comes up again. It kind of comes up. So anyway, Vanisher's like living the high life. He's, fucking bitches and has treasure and whatever he wants, and he's loving life. And then Nightcrawler shows up and he's like, hey bro, we gotta go. I can't leave without you. And he's like, no, I will not. And then they have like a jaunt. they do some swashbuckling, and we see Nightcrawler fighting with like two swords, one with his tail, and then they go bam, bam, bam. And it's good stuff. He tackles Vanisher, drags him over to this thing, and the whole time, the reason it's important to remember that you can't take things with you or like bad things will happen is because this whole time the Vanisher's wearing some sort of like crazy necklace. So they get to the tool, and then Vanisher tries to fight Nightcrawler some more, and it's like hilarity ensues. And Nightcrawler's like unaffected by any of his business. And then like a monster shows up. Oh no, wait, the necklace is gone. Oh, hold on. I don't know what happens. We'll get there in a second. So then they both like, fuck it, and they both jump in the thing, and they teleport right back to where the X-Men are, only Vanisher is completely naked. So he doesn't have his like fancy like costume or anything. He's like, oh, I'm out of here. And my assumption is that he carried something back with him. I don't know. That was my assumption, but like he had a necklace and then it was gone right before they jumped in. So that might just be bad writing. And then Nightcrawler's like, cool, that was fun. Adios. And then he teleports away. Meanwhile, Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus, and Storm are just all standing around. Good stuff. But yeah, that's it. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe. That's the Bizarre Adventures, just kind of like little mini stories about guys. And I will catch you all later.